Calling in from Nebraska, pronouns are he, him. This is Mohammed, who wants to talk to us about a new way to think about spirits, demons, and gods. So maybe we'll get closer and closer to some sort of spirituality. Welcome, Mohammed.
Hi, Mohammed.
Hey, Matt. How are you? How are you guys doing?
I'm all right.
I'm also good.
Oh.
Yes, the person you didn't mention.
So, yeah, I was calling in to talk to you guys about a way that to think about spirits, demons, and gods that I found very useful in my understanding of the world.
Okay.
So I guess a prerequisite it should be that I don't believe in anything like supernatural. I don't believe in like spirit realms or anything like that.
Okay, so why are you finding a way to think about demons and spirits if you don't believe that they exist?
So like I kind of think of spirits as like as like manifestations or physical representations of like biological drives or cultural phenomena, stuff like that.
So you see them as cognitions,
no,
not as tangibly existing.
Yeah, they don't make decisions or they don't like haunt people or anything like that. No.
So they don't exist external to you at all. Like there is no such thing as a demon outside of your own mind.
So just to make sure, because I want to make sure I'm understanding this, what you're saying is that the way you think about spirits is it's all in someone's head. They're just kind of imagining it or projecting something about their own psyche.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you prove?
I also think that
this puts me in a weird position because I think you're right, or I think that your assessment is far more reasonable than someone who would say that they're real. The problem is, how do you prove that you're right? Because as far as I can tell, the notion of a spirit is ultimately, currently, and perhaps forever, an unfalsifiable claim. And so you're basically trying to claim that you've falsified the unfalsifiable because you can't prove what's in somebody else's head is just in their head. How do you prove that they're not actually perceiving something you can't perceive?
I guess I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no way I can think of to do that.
So what I'm more interested in is you seem to say essentially, or you seem like you're saying, I'm sorry, that these are just concepts. So people have concepts is what you're saying. And one of the concepts that people have is of spirits or demons. So from that, what is useful? Because all you're saying is people are capable of constructing concepts. I mean, sure. But from that, why is it valuable or useful? And why isn't it detrimental?
Yeah, so I kind of subscribe to a philosophy that a person's mind or their psyche is kind of like a world unto itself. It's not like the physical world, obviously, but it's a world unto itself that only they can inhabit. And when I think that spirits are like, it's kind of complicated. So what
are fairies? What are fairies? And are those the same?
Yeah.
Okay, then here's the weird question. I have two weird questions, which you can kind of combine. It says here that you're a theist, but you started by saying that you don't believe in anything supernatural. I'm very confused about how to reconcile those two things of you saying you don't believe in something supernatural and that you're a theist. But also you called in to talk about spirits, demons, and gods, but you didn't call in to talk about fairies, pixies, unicorns, dragons, etc. Why?
Well, I think all of those should qualify as spirits. Well, at least in my worldview. Obviously, they're not, but
okay. Then
you're
just stuck on the first part.
Because you're just saying at that point that anything that can be constructed in an imagination at all that can't be demonstrated as a component of tangible reality is a spirit. So anything that you can think of that is, a fantasy is a spirit of some sort. Is that correct?
I would say that because the spirits that I'm thinking of would be more like the God of the Christian Bible, Yahweh. You and I can agree that Yahweh doesn't exist. but he
Right.
does exist in the minds of the people who believe in him, and
So
it does have an actual effect on society.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. So I'm with you that it has an effect on society in that ideas, insofar as people subscribe to them or believe in them individually and as an aggregate, as a group, can have an effect on their behavior and the behavior of groups as a whole. And societies are large groups. So it is what your angle. I'm desperately trying to figure out what you're angling at. Is what you're angling at is that there is some sort of value in that because it dictates people's behavior, or are you just saying that everybody's going to do it anyway? I'm just trying to figure out where we're going.
No, the reason I kind of brought up the Christian God is because he's a great example of something that isn't really real. Honestly, but it does have say that again.
I just said real. I said real at the same time you did. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
I'm really nervous.
That's okay. Don't be nervous. You're okay.
Another example of something that I would consider a spirit would be manifest destiny. Obviously, she isn't real, but I think she is an embodiment of the drive to kind of explore the world, or at least for Americans to conquer the West, even if they did it very belligerently.
Okay. So now we've gone on a sidetrack here. So it seems as though you are saying it has some form of utility. Having these ideas or concepts that aren't real can drive people towards doing things. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. For better or worse.
For better or worse. Okay. So that doesn't actually have to be a spirit. You don't have to label that a spirit. Ultimately, what you are saying is people believe in ideas and concepts, and those ideas and concepts are capable of motivating them towards behavioral outcomes. That's all you're saying. And that goes without saying. Like, that is just a fact of the matter. So relabeling it as a spirit doesn't serve any sort of substantive purpose for me. You can analyze individually and say that people who have believed in spiritual, who are bought into the tenets of spiritual beliefs and structures of spirituality, they have had maybe predictable outcomes as a result of the tenets of that faith, but ultimately, the ground of what you're saying is when people have ideas or concepts that they believe in, that we can relatively reliably predict that they may have some form of behavioral outcome, and you don't need to label that a spirit. That's unnecessary at all. Like, why is that necessary?
I guess not. I guess it's not really important. I was
okay.
I was actually creating I was actually world building, and that's because I write, and that's what led me down this kind of thought. So I guess I was just being a bit like I don't know.
It's fine to be it's fine to be poetic and metaphoric and try to find make things more beautiful. I'm still confused because you identify as a theist and yet you say you don't believe anything is supernatural. So what God do you believe in?
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember me, but I've called in before. I mistakenly tried to make a scientific case for the existence of thousands of gods, but I misunderstood what you guys meant by scientific case. So I believe that when you take life in its entirety, meaning the entire biosphere as like a single entity or an organism of some sort, it qualifies as a god to me.
Yeah, except that life can't be taken as an entity. Shannon and I are not part of a hive mind, part of a collective, part of a single entity. We're not part of some broader organism just because we're both alive.
Well, I guess.
Well,
But
I
the
guess.
reason
I mean,
the reason
you'd
I
have to
say
prove
that
that we are. And so if
Well,
so now you're saying that you believe in a God that you have no way of demonstrating, or and may not even be true, and that's something that confuses me.
the reason I think of life as one thing is because of the theory of abiogenesis, that we all came from one singular some simple organism billions of
Well,
years ago.
no. So first of all, we don't have an explanation for abiogenesis yet. There are a number of different models, but all abiogenesis is how does life arise from non-life? First of all, even if it only ever happened once, that does not mean that every organism that arrives from that and all of its descendants and all of its cousins are part of one organism or one thing. But what you also don't know is that how many times throughout the universe has abiogenesis occurred? Because if abiogenesis occurred millions of times throughout the universe, which you don't know, then clearly those organisms can't be considered part of even a collective life that you would like to do. You're way too absorbed with finding something poetic and making it meaningful, and not focused enough, in my opinion, on whether or not something is true and useful.
That's valuable.
I understand.
Cool. I'm gonna move on, but I appreciate the call, Mohammed. And if you get more stuff to think about, we're always happy to hear it.
All right. You guys have a nice day.
You too. Thank you, Mohammed.